My name is EbonyJanice. I go by EbonyJanice, which means that you should call me EbonyJanice. I was about to start by saying, I don't know why I started going live. Why did I go live in this dark room? It's going to get darker. Anyways, hey y'all, it's your girl Fantasia Barrino. I am here to talk about womanism. And I have historically, part 2 of my Womanism is the Feminism as Purple is to Lavender lecture is coming up this month. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Number one, my part 1 of the Womanism is the Feminism as Purple is to Lavender lecture has been focused more on the socio-political and which is important, right? That you understand where my womanist framework really is coming from. That womanism is a socio-political and spiritual religious praxis that basically asks us to walk into the room, hand the microphone to the least of these, right? Hand the microphone to the people or the persons that we're least likely to hear from. And womanism then becomes this ethic that doesn't just ask us to be thinking about the gender reality of the language of womanism or feminism, but to be thinking about all the intersections. So therefore, womanism is inherently intersectional. So the spiritual religious aspect then of womanism very often gets left out of the conversation. And so this part 2 of my Womanism is the Feminism as Purple is to Lavender lecture is going to give us the opportunity to think about that and to think about why that is important. And so I am resting. This is me resting. Look at me. I'm laying down telling you this. But so saying that to say that one of the things that is the thing that I love about womanism, or that is one of the things that I love about womanism, is that I get the opportunity to talk about wholeness. And this is a part of the theory, a part of the framework, a part of the ethic that feminism doesn't offer, which is ultimately the reason why Alice Walker says in the 4th part of that definition that womanism is the feminism as purple is to lavender. She's basically saying that womanism then is Black women's deeper feminist work, right? It's the deeper shade of purple. It's the, as purple is to lavender, it's the deeper shade of work. And that part of that is that spiritual religious. Part 3 of that definition is loves spirit, loves roundness, loves dance, loves the moon, all these parts. Part of that womanism definition. And so the reason why I want to bring a whole lecture to the table about this spiritual portion of this definition is because what I'm understanding is that there is no actual healing that is there is no wholeness, there is no healing in the conversation around our social justice movements, right? We talk about, anti-racism education. We talk about, equality amongst genders. We talk about equity, but we don't talk about the actual healing that would have to happen in order for us to be able to sustain that. It's not sustainable. Even if you get a whole bunch of information and have this, very profound education, how is it sustainable if your heart is wicked, right? How is it sustainable if all that you know is to behave this way? I very often like to use the example, use my own privileges as an example. I am for the most part, able-bodied woman. And from this ableist perspective, this place that I exist in, my centering, the way that I think is, how will this benefit me? Will I be taken care of? Can I walk into space and everything is going to be good, right? That's what I think about. My natural inclination isn't to think about who isn't taken care of in this space. And so any conversation around liberation that is just informational, that's just academic, that's just from this, intellectual perspective, that doesn't talk about the ways that we have to decenter ourselves and how we have to then deal with ego, right? How we have to actually heal in order to be able to decenter ourselves. It's not realistic. I cannot walk into a room and tell you the only way for this to be equitable is for you to decenter yourself when every single thing that you've ever learned is from this you centering you perspective, or you being centered perspective. That the type of pain and grief that the ego then goes through in order to try to shift that is almost impossible, right? So if we're having these conversations, these anti-racist conversations, or these conversations about, gender equality, if we're having these conversations without a conversation about healing, about wholeness, then it's not reality. It's not sustainable. So my womanism is to feminism as purple is to lavender. The part 2 of this lecture that you're getting this month, March 21st, is very important to our work and to our journey, because it is asking us to consider what Alice Walker talks about in that part 3 of that definition: loves spirit, loves roundness, loves dance, loves wholeness. This ultimately also is a major part of what I've been suggesting that we're experiencing, what I'm imagining as a 4th wave of womanism. And this 4th wave of womanism ultimately is Black women scholars, womanists that are theorizing, that are centering, particularly for Black women, is our wellness, right? You see that and these are the people that are my go-to, but there are, of course, many more than the ones that I'm about to list or mention here. But you see that in the work of Tricia Hersey Patrick in the Nat Ministry, right? When she says that rest is resistance, that is a moving away from the type of work that says we have to march in the streets in order for us to resist, to say that rest is to resistance, and then to build this theory, or to contribute to what she always crediting the ancestors, to talk about the fact that in a capitalist system, to rest then is resistance because it's anti-capitalist. You see that in the work of Sheila Marie with Curvy Curly Conscious, who is ultimately saying that Black women at play is revolutionary, right? Because Black women historically have not been allowed to given space to play. So that is a completely different, it's not different that our ancestors never had any kind of conversation, but it's building a work around that versus doing that and all these other things, right? So then it is that when Black women get to play, then that is revolutionary. Therefore, there will be change because Black women are playing. And Black women are experiencing something as a result of that play that is beneficial to all people. Because what we know for sure is that when Black women are well, we're all well. We see that in the work of Black Girl in Om, where they are centering Black women's wellness. And that is a part of our revolution and our resistance. That when Black women are well, that when we focus on Black women's wellness, that when we put Black women at the center of it, then we have the opportunity to really shift the ways that we experience our health, our wellness, our well-being, right? And then you see that in the work of Thea Monier, really talking about pleasure in everything. Thea Monier can bring pleasure into every single conversation. It's mind-blowing sometimes the way that she can bring pleasure into a conversation. And we see that in the work of an EbonyJanice through Dream Yourself Free, when I'm ultimately saying that our dreams are revolutionary, our dreams are resistance, because when we get to dream, right? When we get to say, it came from this place of me realizing that I have been creating from a place of resistance. I have to do this work because if I don't do this work, me and my people gonna be sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And so shifting from this, creating from a place of resistance into creating from my dreams and my highest imagination, this is who I really am, right? In my highest imagination, I just get to rest and be well and be in love and be, shining, 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 shining. Yeah, all of this winning, right? In my highest imagination. So I introduced this language. It's the language of my ancestors, right? I know that I'm not the first person to be talking about dreaming, but ultimately I'm introducing it in this wave of this womanist movement. I'm introducing the idea that dreams are our work. That if you want to know what Black women are doing for the movement, we are dreaming. Huh? If you want to know what Black women are doing for the movement, we are resting. If you want to know what Black women are doing that is revolutionary, that is radical, we are playing. If you want to know what Black women are doing that is radical and revolutionary and is going to change the world, we are experiencing pleasure. That is revolutionary. Right? And so womanism is to feminism as purple is to lavender. My lecture on March 21st is really focusing on how this idea of this part 3 of Alice Walker's definition of womanist, loves roundness, loves spirit, loves dance, loves the moon, right? It's going to focus on how this spiritual aspect, how there has to be some type of relationship there, how there has to be a centering there in our work and in our ethic. If your actual anti-racist ethic, if your actual gender equality ethic, if that does not center play, pleasure, rest, dreaming, and ease, it's not sustainable. Therefore, womanism is going to save all of us, particularly like I'm suggesting this wave of womanism. Womanism will save all of us because womanism is asking us to be inherently revolutionary by divesting from the ways that we have been existing from time. This wave of womanism is suggesting that that will not serve us anymore, that we will die, right? This wave of womanism is basically saying that what was historically being considered revolutionary worked in that time, but in this time it will kill us. That we cannot sustain that. That we cannot sustain that. And that for people claiming to be our co-conspirators and allies, that if you expect us to sustain that you are not actually my ally, you are not actually a co-conspirator, but that you're contributing to my downfall. You're contributing to my demise by insisting that form of resistance is the only way that we can show up and actually experience revolution. Right? And so that's the reason why I am doing this Womanism is to Feminism as Purple is to Lavender lecture, the part 2 of it, because what I understand is that part 1 of it is talking about the socio-political, but part 2 is talking about the spiritual religious. Because if you have been learning with me from some time, you've heard me explain that my womanist ethic is a both socio-political and spiritual religious tool that I'm using to co-create a just and equitable society. And that womanism is going to save all of us, because what we know for sure is that when Black women are well, we all are well. And we know that factually, right? Even though it was not a win for real for the people, the way that bill passed yesterday was as a result of womanist work, of Black women across the country ensuring that certain people were in positions of power to cast the votes that mattered when it was time to make those votes happen. I don't see that bill as a win, for the record. But what I'm suggesting is that bill would not have passed at all if it were not for the work of womanists. Here's my thing, however, that this womanist ethic that's asking Black women specifically to center rest, pleasure, play, and ease as the work is basically saying that we cannot carry this country, this world, this earth on our back. And then then our wins, right? A win like yesterday. What did we actually win when we win? So our winning has to be rest, pleasure, play, and ease, right? It has to be dreaming. It has to be the imagination. It has to be that. Because if it's not, if we're waiting for our wins to be from this government, which we should overthrow. I don't know why we haven't, honestly, truly. Like, why are we still doing this? But but if that has to be our win, that cannot be our win. It's not sustainable. So what is sustainable is for us to shift in this new wave, to really understand womanism as both a socio-political and a spiritual religious framing. And that is the thing that makes it womanism is the feminism as purple is to lavender. That is the thing that makes it the deeper shade of purple, because what we understand historically is that feminism, particularly this white feminist agenda, has not considered the wholeness of people, right? Joan Morgan, and I'll quote this in both the socio-political and the spiritual religious, and I'm done. But Joan Morgan says that white women do not call their men brother, therefore their feminism will always be enviably simpler than mine. And that is, I even bring that into this conversation, that the idea of not being in community, the ways that Black women exist in community with each other, that womanism is, like I said, inherently intersectional because it's considering the whole person. And in its inception, considering the whole person. And me as a whole person, a part of my whole personhood is my brother or my non-binary, right? And that, particularly from a white feminist perspective, white feminism doesn't have that wholeness in its ethic, right? Or in its praxis, the wholeness of the people. And so feminism or womanism gives us the opportunity to have that conversation. So come to my lecture on March 21st. We're going to talk about the things and talk about the things. And also, honestly, I'm your favorite teacher's favorite teacher. I am. And that ain't even a brag, honestly. Even though I am a hip-hop womanist and, hip-hop is the place by which I get to be braggadocious if I want to. So, but that ain't a brag. That's just a fact. I'm your favorite teacher's favorite teacher. We have a good time and we learn and we change and we evolve and we are never the same. And that's both actual and factual. I don't know why I started this live sitting in this dark room knowing that the sun was going down. So I'm going to end now. Make sure you come to my live and y'all be blessed. Be best.